Welcome to the Spiritual Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Cessna, and I bring you, the Phoenix family, a weekly podcast about alchemy, spirituality, magic, mysticism, and more. The Spiritual Phoenix Podcast is fan-funded, and you can contribute with the link in the show notes. Other ways to show your support include subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us excellent reviews wherever possible, engaging with our content on social media, shooting me an email, and sending an audio message through the Anchor app. This is a community podcast. I'm just the humble host. Let's start the show. All right, welcome everybody. We are joined today by Holly Tramont. Holly, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ross?
I'm a little bit tired, but I'm exceptionally well, thank you.
Good.
One of the very beginning questions I ask everybody is, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, I think about this a lot because I try to reflect on what I'm grateful for every day. Otherwise, days and days go by and I totally forget that I should be grateful for a lot because I have a lot to be grateful for. But I think as of recently, one thing that I am grateful for is my health, because I did have a pretty severe injury last year around this time. Actually, I had a herniated disc in my back, which literally knocked me off my feet. And I went through a very, very long healing process and made me realize that, our health is so fragile. Our bodies can be compromised in a second. We can be in a car accident, something could happen, you never know. So just to wake up every day and be able to walk, just to walk is amazing. And I commonly now, after my injury, reflect upon that and I'm so grateful for that. And also my family, who's so supportive of everything that I do, and my friends. Definitely what I'm grateful for.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. Were you into kind of the stuff that you're into now prior to the injury, or was that something that came up as a result of? Okay.
That's a really great question. I'm so glad you asked that because I find that a lot of people, once something bad happens to them or really traumatic, that's when they kind of start asking big life questions or just questions about themselves. And that's kind of when they stumble upon spirituality and self-awareness and self-help and stuff like that. I had an interest in self-help and spirituality and pretty much all things paranormal, you could say, since I was a kid. I remember, oh my gosh, just from day one, I was interested in Bigfoot and Atlantis. And I was always wondering, I'm like, why can't I talk to animals? Like, they do it in the movies. Why can't I do it, in real life? Like, what's the difference? Of course, at the time I didn't know about CGI and, movie effects. I was too young for that. But the question still persisted. I'm like, why is life this way and not this way? And I had so many questions about ancient civilizations. I was fascinated by ancient Egypt. I just felt like a draw to it and certain things. And I had a pretty abnormal interest in religion also as a young kid. And I mean, I went to a very small school, so nobody to my knowledge was interested in just, I guess, the origin story and why we're all here and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't gravitate towards religion like how most people do. Some people kind of dive into it and then they kind of get immersed in it and then it becomes like an identity. That wasn't the case for me. I was more curious. I was a truth seeker, I guess you could say. I had an intuitive knowing that there was pieces missing to the story, whether it's the story of Christianity or just life in general, and why we're here and how we got here and how life really is. I just knew intuitively that there's things missing. There's things that are not talked about in the mainstream media. And I knew this from a really young age, and I thought it was normal. I thought that everybody thinks about this stuff, and until I noticed nobody else have fascination by all this stuff. So that kind of got shoved down a little bit so I could fit into school life and with other people, but it resurfaced many times, and I just the drive to know the truth was just burning constantly, like a fire. And sometimes I would get distracted by, social stuff and activities and school, because I, was probably 2 steps below a teacher's pet because I was a major procrastinator. And so I commonly didn't turn in a lot of homework assignments, but the ones that I did turn in were just totally, perfectionist and very over the top, because that's just my brain and how it works. But yeah, so I knew that I was different. I thought different, at least from most people that I went to school with. But I hid it, because I couldn't really talk about it with a lot of other people. And then, and that was all throughout school. I mean, I had an interest in this stuff since, like I said, since the first day that I could remember something. And then it wasn't until I think my sophomore year of high school, I realized that my dad was also very interested in self-help. And he had the same questions that I had about, religion and society and how it's currently functioning. And we both just had an intuitive knowing that something was off, that things could be better, I guess is a better way of saying it. And not that, life is horrible, because I've recently changed my perspective on how I view society. I'm trying to view it in more of an optimistic way, and not so much like this is what's wrong and this is what needs to be changed, but rather this is what's great about the world, and I want to make more of that. I want to expand more upon that, instead of directing my focus on what's wrong with the world, because we can talk until the cows come home about what's wrong with the world, but that really doesn't do a whole lot, is what I found just from my own experience. And it's not really attractive in conversation, unless somebody is really fired up and they're angry about something. Then you just kind of you bounce off of each other and you're like, yeah, this is horrible and this is horrible, but the anger kind of fades away after a while, and then you're like, well, what now? But it's a lot more attractive and fun to talk about if you're talking about all the things that you're grateful for and all the things that you love, and the possibilities, things that could happen, things that could go right. And so that's been my approach as of recently, because I was not always that way. I think I kind of adopted my dad's first reaction to finding out a lot about, what goes on and behind the scenes. And he did not have such a positive reaction, and neither did I, because being an empathic person, you feel for other people and for the earth and for animals and all beings. And our first survival instinct is to get defensive and get really angry, because it's a very, very old way of dealing with things that we don't like. And so that's another thing that I'm trying to transcend is how I react to things that I don't like. And that's one way that I do that.
Yeah, there's a lot that I can relate to in what you just said. I was into a lot of this stuff at a very early age, but for me, like, I had a moment where I won't say I got more into it, but I had to maybe re-examine my core belief structure of some of it. And then throughout that whole process, like, it developed into more than it would have been had I not had the experience that I did. For me, it was more mental health than it was physical stuff. But there was like a turning point in there for me. One of the things too that I wanted to touch on to what you said is in regards to the negative stuff. Yeah, I think that like part of awakening is kind of being like aware of, oh, there's all this stuff wrong and the world's kind of fucked in this aspect. Like momentarily, like I think you have to have that perspective if you're like looking at it with any kind of honesty. But then it does become like when you're saying, if somebody's constantly saying like the world's such a negative place, it's like you're directly contributing to that negativity by saying it's negative and like not doing anything. And I think so many people miss it, the whole point that like the quote unquote revolution that we need. I said this with a guest I interviewed last week as well. The revolution will be internalized. Like it has to start within us, and all of the change comes from within us. And instead of wanting everybody else to change, maybe it's like, maybe we have to step up a little bit more. Maybe we have to dig in a little bit deeper, show more empathy, compassion, tolerance. And I'm by no means there yet. A lot of stuff still pisses me off and irritates me, if I'm being honest. I'm a lot happier than I used to be, and my life is a lot more functional. I'm a lot less of a dick. So
That's good. That's a good step forward.
Right.
But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, be the change. It's such a, I mean, it's used a lot, but there's, I don't think there's anything more truthful than that. And truthful meaning more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
True and more powerful is just be the change. And it's not, encourage people to be the change. No, it's you be the change. And by being the change, you inspire other people. And it becomes their own, choice by free will. Because when you start, kind of forcefully trying to influence people, whether it's for their own good or not, there's an element of negativity behind it. And I think part of it comes from fear. I mean, any forceful control comes from fear.
Yeah, there's a whole
And
saying too. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that's like if you look at the world, so many horrible things have happened because people were attempting to do their version of good, but they went a little too
right.
far on enforcing it on other people.
Yeah, and to give a very exaggerated example, but this always comes to mind because I'm a big movie buff, and so I love cinema and how we're able to tell stories that can connect people and really exemplify spiritual truths as well. Um, a common theme that I see in movies now is the bad guy has good intentions about, and this is relating to the overpopulation issue. I believe it was a movie called Kingsman that they kind of touched upon this social issue, but the antagonist, or the bad guy rather, wanted to help the planet by limiting the population. So you could say in a way that might be something, of good intentions, where you want to, help the planet because maybe the planet is dying, and that's the answer, is to limit the population. But the way that they go about it is to kill a bunch of people. And of course, the superhero, or, the protagonist comes in and says, no, look, I understand that, the planet might be dying, and, humans might be contributing to that. But the answer is not to force our own will upon those in such a way where you take away their right to live.
Hmm.
And if they're taking away somebody else's. And I didn't really understand the spiritual underpinnings until of a lot of these movie themes, until I started reading about spirituality and self-help and that kind of stuff. I mean, because yeah.
One of the things that's interesting is so many movies and stuff have all these esoteric concepts in there, and there's like a lot of deep wisdom in what they're actually saying. And I don't really think that there is any real bad guys in the world. Like there's people that do some stuff that maybe we don't agree with, but it's more so from trauma and harm and from like a lot of character defects than it is them actually being bad people. And even if they want to be evil, it's not so much that they're evil, it's that they have like a distorted perception. It's super fascinating. Also, in regards to like the world thing, it's interesting because people think that like we actually have the ultimate ability to kind of end the world, and I'm pretty sure that like the world can survive without us. I have a sneaking suspicion that if humans all died off, it'd be fine. And here's the thing: like if we do end the world, we'll be soon to follow afterwards too. So it's like kind of built in. It's kind of a dark thing to say, but it's true.
But yeah, so I mean that's just something I think about a lot because it's a good example to use, and people can relate to movies and they're familiar with movie plots and stuff. So I commonly talk about that. But going back to your original question, and how I kind of got started on all of this. Like I said before, I had an interest in spirituality and enlightenment, or if you want to use that word, it has more of a connotation to certain aspects of spirituality, but self-help, spirituality, all that kind of stuff, paranormal. I always had an interest in it, but it never really clicked until my senior year of high school, actually. That was kind of like, I think, the catalyst that really started putting pieces together for me. I had a class where one of our teachers, he assigned us a project, and it was based off of Ben Franklin. And I don't know if most people know this about Ben Franklin, but he was a very oh my gosh, I don't even know the right word for it, but he basically made a program for himself. I want to say that Ben Franklin is like the pioneer of self-help, because he created a virtue program for himself. So he picked a list of virtues that he wanted to live up to. And off the top of my head, I can't really give you a list of any of them right now, but he picked a list of virtues, made like a daily tracking chart, and he every single day would, mark off, okay, did I live up to this virtue, and he tracked himself and like tracked his progress. And I found it so fascinating that he was tracking his progress based on virtues and not necessarily like, oh, like I, if it was relating to, sports, or like I, do better in this, or I was a better hunter or a better politician, whatever. And it was more tracking his character. And I had never thought about doing that, before, so vigilantly. And I'm really glad my teacher had, brought this to us. And so he assigned us this project, and I, dove right into it and made my own list of virtues, and, made charts and tracked my progress and did different activities to try to, stimulate different, things in my brain that might make me think differently and act differently, and therefore get different results. And it was amazing. It was like a snowball effect. I changed one thing, whether it was, started meditating for 10 minutes in the morning, and like changed my whole day. Like I got to school and I was like more refreshed and prepared and less stressed, and like just things like that, throughout, my whole day and weeks. And I was totally hooked. I think that was like the bug that I caught for self-help. And so I started looking into self-help. And this was my senior year of high school. So I graduated. And then after that, I was, free. I didn't have any obligations to, do a bunch of projects and homework. So I spent a lot of time reading self-help books. And of course, the self-help books, depending on which ones you read, they kind of lead into spirituality and law of attraction and kind of that branch. And that was the avenue that I went down, because I already had a pre-existing curiosity for religion and spirituality. And then when I started incorporating the self-help stuff, it was like things were kind of coming together, and I started, seeing patterns and things linking up. And it was just like light bulbs were just going off in my head. And I was like, why doesn't everybody know about this? And everybody should read about self-help and, spirituality. And I became super obsessed. And unfortunately at the time, I kind of went down the spiritual rabbit hole. I kind of got sucked into needing to know the answers to everything about life. And I think at the time I was struggling with probably some phases of anxiety and depression, because it was fueling my anxious need to know the answer. And so everything, I kind of put everything by the wayside. Like I didn't have any career plans. I actually wasn't hanging out with a lot of friends. My parents expressed a lot of concern because I was just, watching videos, reading books. But I wasn't, like super happy. I was just like obsessed. And like I said, at the time, I think it was more fueled by just like an emotional, mental imbalance. And I still to this day have to be careful of that. If I'm feeling down, to not necessarily go to a self-help book or a spiritual book and then expect to find the answer that I'm looking for, because if I don't find the answer, I will just keep looking and looking and looking, and then everything suffers because of that. So I actually have learned to incorporate something that I learned from one of my spiritual teachers. He's a Native American born from two different tribes, I believe. He's, I think, Cherokee and one other, I can't remember, but his name is Rainbow Eagle, and he's just an amazing soul. And I learned something very valuable from him. And I guess this comes from his culture, that whenever they would come across something that they didn't understand, they would mentally put that scenario or question in what's called the mystery bag. And there's no bag, like it's just totally metaphorical, but they would just put it in the back of their mind. Like, I don't understand what this is, but I'm not going to get, scared by it or freak out. I'm just going to put it in the back of my mind in the mystery bag. And then, the answer will come later on. And whenever that comes, if it never comes, that's fine. It can stay in the mystery bag and not be a burden to my mind. Or the answer will be there maybe tomorrow, next week, in 10 years, whatever. And he just was talking about it so beautifully, and how they kind of used that same process, that mental process, when it came to the settlers. And they didn't really understand who these people were and why they were here, and why they were taking their land. And that was one big thing that they kind of had to put in their mystery bag to not become distraught over what was happening. Of course, then it exploded, but that was just one part of their culture that I found so beautiful and so applicable. I mean, how often do we become obsessed with finding a solution? If we're worried about something, we're like, we need to know the answer. It's that need to have control. And I heard about the mystery bag, and I'm like, yep, I'm using that. And of course, sometimes, it doesn't always cure the anxiousness, but it allows me to put the book down, stop the video, and go do what I need to do. If I need to do my laundry, it needs done because I need to have clothes to wear tomorrow. I can put the book down and, do my laundry, and then do, my normal, 3D things, as they like to say. But, so yeah.
Yeah, Rainbow Eagle, I went to his Serpent Mound tour that he did last November. He's super cool.
Yeah, I love him. I love him so much.
And the whole concept of the mystery bag, it makes me think of I'm in a 12-step recovery program. It makes me think of the premise of just for today. So just for today, I'm going to let this sit over here, and it'll circle back around when it's supposed to. I'll put it on the shelf. I don't have to worry about it. All I have to stay focused on is what I'm doing right now and how I can resolve something for in the moment. So this is another question I like to ask people. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I mean, it depends on, what answer you want. Do you want a career title? Do you want more of a personality, example?
However you define who you are and however you define what you do. I don't have any definitive outline.
Well, if you were to ask me this question even maybe 4 months ago, I wouldn't really have a good solid answer. I would just kind of say, yeah, my name is Holly, and I'm kind of, I like this and this and this, and I like to talk about this. But as of recently, I've kind of figured out a general sense of, what my soul is and what my, purpose is. And at the moment, I don't carry a career title, because number one, I don't really have a said career yet. I'm only 23, and I feel like in some aspects have just been born again, type of thing. I started seeing the world totally differently, and because of that, I'm starting over, basically. I mean, my whole life, going through school up until probably my senior year, and after I graduated, when I started making a lot of changes in my diet, changes in, my habits, and, a whole bunch of stuff. I was somebody, but I was not myself. It was just a lot of stuff that was downloaded, onto me, conditioning and things that I saw around me. And being the youngest of 3 children, I kind of was the people pleaser and always looking up to other people, and didn't have enough self-confidence to be myself. So that version of me, I wouldn't even say that was me. That version that I was showing everybody was not me, and it's only been recently. So it's funny that you have come around to ask me this now, because now I have a better answer. But anymore, or at least right now, I feel like I resonate most with being a crystal child. It's a term, I'm sure you've heard of it, that's thrown around in the spiritual community. It's in the same realm as indigo children, starseed, and blah blah blah. And I'm not a huge fan of labels. I think it separates us a lot, and it can be used to separate people. But I feel like for the time being, it's a really good, just quick gist of who I am. And so if for, those listening, if you're not familiar with what a crystal child is, it's similar to an indigo. And when I first heard about indigos, I was like, I don't feel like I resonate a whole bunch with indigos, just because they have certain personality traits that don't really fit me. But basically, the basis of being a crystal child or an indigo child is that you have, number one, you have an intuitive knowing that you have a purpose. And that's one thing that I have found just recently talking to people that that was unique to me. A lot of people that I talk to just kind of in everyday life, they're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know why I'm here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't really relate with that. I mean, sometimes when I'm having, bad days, I'm just like, I doubt myself, but then I come back to, my center, and then I know who I am. I've known who I was since I was very, very little, since before I could remember, until, I started adopting things that weren't me. But I always felt like I had a mission, like I came here with a mission. And it kind of like, if you were to be put on a job site, you have this feeling like, what you have to do, and you're here for a purpose. It's not just kind of willy-nilly, like, what is this, I had a sense of purpose. And that's one thing that I feel set me apart from a lot of people that I grew up around. And then another thing is that I felt a huge connection to the earth and like all the environment, all beings and everything. And I felt a lot of compassion and a drive to help the planet in some way. And I it's funny because I felt the need to save the planet before I even knew that there was a whole bunch of things wrong with it, which is kind of funny because, if you were to ask any little kid, who isn't a starseed or indigo or a crystal child, they wouldn't know all of the bad stuff that's going on. And they wouldn't really intuitively know that, that the animals need help, the oceans need help, unless they were told. And I knew this like before I even really knew the extent of the damage that humans have done to the planet and ourselves and the animals and everything. And so what that looked like in school was me wearing tons of t-shirts that said, save the ocean, save the planet, blah, blah, blah. And I, watched, there was a channel on TV called Planet Green for a very short period of time. And I was just obsessed. And they had talked about, eco-friendly inventions and, living and all kinds of stuff. And I was just glued. I was like, this is awesome. This is so cool. And recycling is amazing. And, and I was just really excited about that stuff and not some of the other stuff that, other people were excited about. But don't get me wrong. This is where I feel like I resonate more with the crystal child, because crystal children, in contrast commonly to indigo children, from what I understand, is that they have more of an artsy personality. They're very expressive, very bubbly, charismatic. They get along with everybody. They are very commonly interested in the arts, which is totally my personality. I mean, whether that's acting, music, singing, dancing, painting, all of it, just anything under the category of the arts. And I relate to all of that. And when I actually heard the term crystal child, I started reading a book by Doreen Virtue, and when I opened up the book, I was reading the first bullet point list of what a crystal child is, and I was like, yep, down to the year that I was born. I guess apparently the indigos came before the crystal children, and then starting around 1995-ish, give or take. There's people who are exceptions to that rule. But starting around 1995 is when the crystal children started being born, and that just happens to be the year that I was born. So just little things like that. I just, the more and more I looked into it, the more I identified with that. So anymore, I refer to myself as a crystal child because it kind of gives you a gist of what I'm really passionate about, and that is, helping myself, being the change, helping the planet, et cetera, teaching about spirituality, helping people with that, and also the personality aspect of it, being artsy and very charismatic and like very people oriented and very like connected with animals and the earth and everything. And that's, so yeah, that's just a good overview of who I am as a person and also my mission in life overall. But if I were to give you an exact like career title, I don't think I can do that at the moment. But one thing that I think is like my outstanding passion is probably music. So that's pretty much who I am.
Very, very, very cool. Do you play music then? Like, what do you play?
I do. I pretty much like all of it. I know a lot of people say that, but it depends on what I'm doing in my mood. I do play guitar. I'm teaching myself how to play guitar because I learn on my own the best. So I play guitar. I do sing. I'm just now starting to learn how to write music, which does not come to me very easily, at least at first. Yeah, what else? Let's see what else. But as far as like music and what I like, I mean, I like anything from pop. I mean, I love pop music. I'm going to be honest. I love pop music. I love anything.
No.
And I know some people like shit on the pop music, but I love it. I love country music. I love Drake. I love all that stuff. But I also love, Frank Sinatra. I do love some alternative acoustic music and some people that, nobody's ever heard of before. And I do love symphonies. I listen to soundtracks. I love movie soundtracks like Gladiator, Lord of the Rings, like just love it. Lorena McKennitt, she's like a really, really cool like world music sound. I love her stuff. It really depends on my mood. I think I'm just overall very artistic. So it depends on my mindset at the time and what I want to express and feel. That's what I gravitate towards. And it could be almost anything musically.
Yeah, I relate to that too. I kind of have a wide array of interest when it comes to music.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that you had mentioned in talking previously was that you host a Facebook group, if I'm not mistaken. What is that all about, and what is the group? Like, what's the basic premise of it and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so it's evolved over time. We're going on, I think, almost 2 years now, and in September that I had the first meeting. But what sparked it was a documentary called Sirius that my dad actually showed me. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Stephen Greer and his work.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Okay, so he started C-SETI, the organization, co-founded C-SETI with, I believe, another person who, Ricky Butterfass, I want to say, and maybe somebody else. But Sirius was the first documentary that I saw, and my dad actually had found it kind of just by accident scrolling through Netflix. And he's like, I gotta see this. It's gonna blow your mind, and you're gonna be very angry, but you need to see this. And of course, I watched the documentary, and I was very angry for a period of time. And that was the first documentary, and it opened my eyes a lot to some very important issues relating to ETs and how the actual existence of ETs has been suppressed for very different reasons than what people think. It has nothing to do with fear and, keeping the public, from going into chaos. It has everything to do with money and how we use oil and gas and things like that for our transportations and everything. And so it had more to do with money and world dominance kind of than just, the shattering of the religious beliefs. So that was pretty earth shattering to me, knowing the connection. And, but I didn't do anything about it. I watched the film, and like I said before, I got really angry about it because I was still in that, phase of my development where I didn't know how to handle truth yet in a productive way. And so I got very angry and, would every once in a while would, vent and talk about it to my dad, and we would, just kind of talk not so great things. And then the second documentary came around called Unacknowledged. And then I watched that documentary with my dad, and I want to say it was either that night or maybe the next night, but very, very promptly after watching the second one, I got on the computer, I went on their website, and I reached out to everybody in the local area who had offered email on their website so that they could talk to other people who had seen the documentary and, wanted to even, get together and do what's called CE5s, which is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And which is, okay, so CE5 is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, meaning it's a human-initiated peaceful contact with extraterrestrials. Sounds really crazy, but what it looks like is meditation. And it comes in all different kinds of forms. I'm not an expert, so I can't really tell you that this is exactly how it is. I've talked to a bunch of people who have done it in all different forms in all different places around the United States and the world. And contact happens in a bunch of different ways. All peaceful, nothing like, super, super cinematic and dramatic and scary. It's just very esoteric contact. Excuse me. So I used the list of emails that I found on the website for CE5s, and I reached out to everybody and I said, hey, name is Holly, saw the documentary, really passionate about this, let's meet up. And that's kind of how it started. And then very quickly when I started meeting these people, which, by the way, I should say that previously, other than my own father, I didn't have anybody to talk to about spirituality and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know anybody who was into that or was that, free thinking and open-minded. And so when I met some of these people, I quickly realized how well-rounded their thinking was. Like, they had more of the picture than just like, oh, this is about UFOs. No, like, they understood spirituality and the connection between spirituality and ETs, and then the wellness of the planet and like all this stuff. They had the bigger picture, and I was like, this is amazing, and I can't believe, why didn't I try to reach out to more people like this? And I still to this day don't exactly know why. I have a couple of reasons that I remember, that kind of may have turned me off to reaching out to other people. And that's, something I'll talk about in a minute. But so I started the group, and then quickly things started to become more than just about the CE5s and making ET contact. It was about the wellness of the planet and self-awareness and expanding consciousness. So at the time I called it Northeast Ohio CSETI group, because we were doing things associated with what Dr. Gurr was doing. Not that we were part of the organization. I want to make that clear. We weren't ever part of the actual organization of CSETI, but just so people can go on Facebook and recognize, like, oh, this is Dr. Gurr's work, whatever, this is what we do. I put CSETI in the title. Well, after I started realizing that all these people were very well-rounded and they understood the bigger picture, I was like, I got to change the name, because this is way bigger than just ETs and making peaceful contact, and this is like about spiritual awakening and self-awareness and health and all that kind of stuff. And so the group name became P.E.A.C.E then, which is an acronym that stands for People for the Evolution and Application of Consciousness on Earth. So the main focus became expanding consciousness, which is a huge all-encompassing subject, but that was the point. Because we started having meetings once a month about all kinds of stuff. I mean, alternative forms of healing we just had a meeting about expanding consciousness through alternative forms of currency, because that is a huge issue, as we know from Dr. Gurr's work, that currency is a huge, I'll say, obstacle to expanding our consciousness and awareness, because when that's being controlled, it really controls our ability to navigate into certain states of consciousness. We're kind of stuck in a survival state because we're fighting for survival, for money and basic things. So so then we became P.E.A.C.E, and since then we've done CE5s, and we've also had meetings on all kinds of other things. So
that's really cool. So that's still going on. Do y'all have like any CE5 meetings coming up now that the weather's getting nice?
Yeah, so during the summer, we try to do the CE5s outside. Not that you can't do them inside, you can, because contact is not, it's not, doesn't show up in the forms that we typically understand. I mean, you're diving into like quantum levels of um, contact and like transportation. And so the barriers that we have on Earth, like, walls and, bricks and things like that, don't really matter. So you can do them inside, but we've typically done them outside because at this time, I think the most common form of contact are lights, and them showing up in the sky instead of doing up close contact, because there's a whole nother realm of contact when they're up kind of like in your general aura and your or energetic field, because from what I understand, there is a there's a gap between our vibration and their vibration, and in some cases because of their vibration is so high, if they were to bring that vibration into our own, it may bring up a lot of stuff very quickly that is blocking us from raising our own vibration. So it can cause a lot of upheaval, whether it's emotional, mental, things like that. So there's a lot of various things that come into account with contact. And so the most common one is just them showing up in the sky, kind of validating that they're there. And so that's why we do a lot of outdoor ones. So yeah, we're going to try to start them up here in late spring, probably at the end of April, maybe May, depending on, Ohio. It's a toss a toss of the coin. So, but yeah, we try to get as many as we can in during the summer. And we usually do them at a private property, and that way we kind of have privacy and we're able to kind of go into our own little world.
Do you have like a meetup group too, or is everything hosted through Facebook?
Everything is done through Facebook right now. I had set up a meetup group a while ago, and I had a friend of mine who was in the group kind of managing that, and we weren't getting as many interested hits on there. So I just decided to concentrate all my efforts on, the Facebook platform, because that's what I started with, and that's how I reached out to a lot of people. And it works. And I think down the road, when I have, I'm able to balance my time a little bit better and have more people help, and I'll expand my platforms and everything. But right now we're using Facebook primarily. I have Instagram as like another way to kind of funnel people to the Facebook, but the Facebook group is really where we post about the events, articles, and our stories. It's really, it's a learning environment. So it's not just like a meetup posting site. People can post, things that really touch them or resonated with them that, they wouldn't necessarily be able to share on their own Facebook profile because nobody else would understand. But in this group, there's a concentration of free-thinking, open-minded people who would understand and would be able to comment and bounce off of your own ideas and also even relate to your own experiences.
Very cool. Another question that kind of came up for me is, you said that you can do the CE5 stuff in your house. Like, what kind of experiences could one expect, or have you personally encountered, or have you heard about in regards to doing it indoors?
So I have not really sincerely tried to do it indoors. So anything anything that I say is just conjecture. But from what I understand and how contact actually works is that you can have physical. I'm going to say physical manifestations, but that's really, I don't know anybody who's had a physical manifestation. But I'm just looking at the science of how they travel and how they manifest into our perceptual, reality, what we can perceive. They have the ability to manifest basically anywhere. I mean, we exist in a universe with a field that is singular. So if you're over here and this person is in another galaxy, that doesn't mean that you can't make contact, whether it's telepathic or physical contact or whatever. I mean, I can't even begin to explain how many different ways. But if you were to do contact indoors, like let's say by yourself, just doing a meditation, I think some forms of contact may look like just images or words that pop in your mind while you're doing, a meditation. And you can attribute that to a form of contact, depending on, what you go into the meditation, what intention you have when you go into the meditation. If you're wanting some confirmation that they're there. So it really could be anything. I personally have seen a couple of different abnormal light configurations when doing CE5s. So that's the only contact that I can say that I've experienced for sure and to be able to explain. But like I said, I've never done the contact indoors, but within the CE5 community, the people who are doing this, actively, they say you don't need to go outside because that's just one way that they can show you that they're there, lights in the sky and, other things around you, whatever, and, magnetic, fields and things. But the connection is, it's timeless. It's limitless. It's all about consciousness. It's your own awareness. So you have that connection to everything and anyone in the universe, just inside yourself.
One of the other questions that comes up from this next for me is, how does one kind of set out to actually do CE5? Do you just put the intention that you want to communicate with these extraterrestrials, or is there like a specific procedure one has to do, or what?
Well, there are protocols that the CE organization has posted on their website, and they've encouraged people to work with, and they to work with when they do CE5s and host them. So there are certain steps that you can take, and there's meditations and the guided meditations, and there's also sounds they've also that they've gathered from crop circles. And I don't really know much about crop circles or all of that stuff, but that's just a couple of the tools that they use to tune the frequency of the group or who's ever doing the CE5 to a frequency that's similar to whoever they're making contact with. But again, to reiterate, it's limitless. I mean, I think they use these tools to help us, humans kind of understand better, how they communicate and how they're able to get here. But I think first and foremost, if you really want to make peaceful contact, you just have to have peaceful intentions to make contact. And you just kind of have to, you don't have to say it like out loud, just kind of in your mind, as if you were going to, deciding in your mind, like, oh, I want to have this for dinner. You make the intention like, okay, yeah, now I would like to make peaceful contact. I don't know when or how, but I would like to. And that kind of starts the energy signature, I would say, that that goes out there, and you'll start attracting, whether it's tools or different people or groups that can help you, or just the actual being itself that you want to attract. It's just sending the energy ripples out into the universe. But that, I would say, is probably the first step. And I'm not going to guarantee that you will make contact just because you have the intention that you want to make contact. There's a lot involved that we are still just beginning to understand about consciousness and states of consciousness and how that affects our ability to communicate with beings who are, I'm going to say, quote unquote, higher, but that's, even the word higher is a very limiting word. It's a 3D word that we use to try to understand. But, and like I was saying earlier, your personal intentions and your personal vibration and state of awareness of yourself and your fears and your beliefs, like all of that comes into play when you're making contact, because your fears can get in the way of a lot, basically, just to put it, plainly. They're not gonna show up if you have a terrible fear of seeing, something abnormal. They're not gonna show up because, number one, they don't want to scare you. Number two, that's you still have a very distorted perception of what and who they are.
Hmm.
And how I see, I don't even like to use the word ETs because it has such a very, a cinematic connotation to it. But beings who are not native to Earth. I have come to understand them as just other beings. I mean, it's just like a being from, somebody from another country. They're just from another country. They're still, have the same, birthrights, and they have, we have things in common with them. So it doesn't really make a huge difference to me whether they're ET or whether they're from Earth, so to speak. So I think that's one obstacle that people have to kind of overcome to be less fearful and to be able to make contact, is to just get over the programming that has been, put into our minds from movies and stories and things like that, and also just our own fears. Making up things.
Yeah, absolutely. We're coming to the end of our time, and before I ask you this last question, I normally like to ask people to throw out their links so people can get a hold of them. Where can people connect with you?
So I would say the best way to get a hold of me, depending on what platform you're most comfortable with, if you have any interest in anything that I've talked about, whether it's been, the spiritual journey, that my health journey, especially my health journey, I'm more than willing to help people, with that, or the CE5s, or just anything in general that we've talked about. You can go to Facebook and find the Facebook group for the CE5s and the P.E.A.C.E group. If you have an interest in that and want to know about, events and post things and things like that, just type in People for the Evolution and Application of Consciousness on Earth. There is a Facebook page and there's a Facebook group. I would say you would want to join the group just because that's where all the activity is. The Facebook page is just kind of like the face of the group. And so there's very limited posts on there, but the group is where all the action is at. But if you want more of like a direct connection with me, I would go to my Instagram, or you could, follow me on Facebook as well. I have that ability now. You can follow me on Facebook at Holly Tramont, and then on Instagram, Holly Tramont. And my Instagram is more all-encompassing of who I am too as an artist, and so I like to post, things, funny things about, my lifestyle, diet, things like that. And then just whatever I like to post, artsy stuff kind of thing, but you can reach me there too.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on, Holly. I feel like we barely scratched the surface. So if you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you so much. I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I like to end the show is to give the guest the opportunity to end the show in their own words. So if you'd like to, the floor is all yours and you can take us out.
Well, I guess my main mantra in this life is just be the change. Be the change that you want to see in the world, and do what makes you happy, because the world needs more happy people.
Thanks for listening to the show, Phoenix family. Just a reminder, we are fan-funded and you can contribute with the link in the show notes. Other ways to support the show include leaving excellent reviews wherever possible, subscribing to our YouTube channel, engaging with our content on social media, sending me an email, or reaching out via voice message through the Anchor app. Your support is greatly appreciated. Much love and synchronicity. Peace.